We live in this world that is constantly, persistently telling us the lie that more is more. That we shouldn't deprive ourselves of anything because we have access to the good life at our fingertips. We have made our idols subconsciously out of some consumption of a lot of things. We have made our idols about getting what you want by the touch of a button, getting food whenever you want without even getting out of your car. We basically can have whatever we want when we want, and it can be satisfied whenever. But here's the truth. Fasting is choosing to deny yourselves of the things that make us human in order to feast on the fullness and richness that is God. Fasting of the things of this world is opening up a door to feast on the overflow of who God is. Fasting is feasting. So when we look at this evidently different meaning that fasting has for the life of a Christian, it's easy to see how the world might view it as living life with very little reward. Society stresses to convince us that if we don't consume 3 large meals a day with snacks in between, that we aren't living up the full pleasure to good food. Culture lies and says that there is no reward in fasting, but our loving Father has a list of comebacks ready to hit any enemy down with the power of his love and his grace. So let's break down this section. It says, "But when you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others that they are fasting." Anyone's mouth just dropped like, dang. Like, okay, Jesus, side note, our Creator in heaven has the best comebacks. This is where Jesus leans in and he unleashes this message how the way we live life should be obviously unique from those around us. And he uses the Pharisees as an example. So guys, the Pharisees practiced fasting as a part of their religions. So on Monday and Thursday, they would venture out into this super busy marketplace looking disheveled and starved in a way to make their fasting announced to everyone. They wanted people to see the way that they practiced their religion and praise them for how holy they were, how obedient they were. They wanted the world to pour out the way that they were living and pour out compliments. And here's what Jesus' response was to their actions. In the next section it says, "Truly I tell you, they have received their reward in full." This reward Jesus is mentioning is exactly the reward that the Pharisees were looking for: fame and recognition. They were looking to feed their pride and their egos and to be seen as holy and righteous. Their actions got them exactly what they wanted. In our day and age, culture preaches this lie that what the world has to offer is good. But here is the hard truth. Everything the world has to offer is temporary and fleeting. Praise, adoration, accomplishments, pleasures are all things fading with time. People see the way that we live lives, and they don't see how we put in this loving and creating intimate relationship with God. And they think we've gained nothing. The world looks at an ancient practice like fasting and sees people that are so devoted to a God that they can't even see why the heck they would be fasting in the first place. They call it foolish. So guys, I guess the bigger question we need to be asking ourselves is, are we willing to seem foolish? Because if the answer to that question is yes, Jesus has this incredible reward laid out for you and for me. He continues on to the next section and tells his disciples, "But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." Notice that language again. But when you fast. He puts the word "but" in front of it for a true meaning, because he's about to create a very stark comparison between the hypocrites or the Pharisees who chose to fast. He's calling his followers to practice fasting. He says to put oil on their heads and wash their faces. Now, at first, honestly, reading this firsthand, I thought, that must be some really dope spiritual practice I don't know about. But actually, it's exactly what it says. Fasting involved the normal routines like putting oil on your heads and washing their faces because it was the normal cleanliness and bathing routines of the people during that time. He says this to make this point. Your fasting shouldn't be obvious to anyone around you. Your choice to fast and be communion with God is not flashy, obvious, or glamorous. Fasting is choosing to engage in a practice that is between you and God alone. There is something so supremely powerful in going about your day depriving yourself of a basic need such as food while secretly knowing that the secret inner attitude and fixture of your heart and your soul is on Jesus and Jesus alone. But at the same time, you're outwardly performing your daily tasks. Your daily life is the same as it is. You're leaning not on your flesh to sustain you, but you are relying on God in your fasting that he would not only be the strength and the nourishment physically, but to your soul as well. One of my favorite sermons that Micah has preached throughout the years had this THP, and it said, Jesus plus nothing equals everything. Guys, this is so true. Outwardly, you are just a human, just a Christian choosing not to eat. But on the inside, you are in a deep communion with God. You are choosing to satisfy yourself on Jesus and Jesus alone. Your soul is singing songs of praise and adoration and worship. Self-denial is not boring. It's not without reward. Self-denial is character forming. It encourages us as believers to see the Lord as our complete source of sufficiency. Jesus assures us that what God sees done in secret, he rewards us. The difference between the rewards of God and the rewards of the world are that God's rewards are eternal. The world offers us this good life, but God offers us eternal life. In choosing to fast, we are actually feasting on God. We are drawing everything we need from the deep well within who he is, our Jireh. The world doesn't have that option. The world is about independence, control, self-assurance, and self-efficiency. But what happens when you fail yourself? What happens when you realize that your efforts might not be enough? Guys, as Christians, we have this everlasting, forever resource of God that he pours onto us day after day, simply by he loves us. It's our choice. It's our offer. But guys, it's our reward. That's our reward.